This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, and a quick audio-visual introduction to a new TV series that looks like it's going to have English subtitles in China, and it's freely available on YouTube, so I'm going to tell you about it. So far I have found 23 45-minute parts. The Chinese do this a lot. They do a lot of these 20, 30, even 35 part TV series, and they're immensely popular. They're usually they're like a TV movie, a serial movie. My wife and myself and our two daughters, our daughter from the United States happened to be visiting when we went to Shanghai to be in a film about the Tangshan earthquake, and and later on I had a part as a psychiatrist interviewing the big starlet, the big star. Anyway, they do this a lot, and in fact I've and my wife, we've actually acted in several other movies in China. But anyway, this one is about poverty alleviation, and believe it or not, they're doing about a 18-hour movie about China's history of poverty alleviation. If you don't know, the people of China have eliminated extreme poverty, and that was one of the goals of Baba Beijing, was to eliminate extreme poverty by 2020, and they did it. And they were out there. My wife and I, when we were driving around in the boondocks of Yunnan, on the border with Vietnam and Myanmar, you could we drove through some villages, and I remember, I commented to my wife, those villages there, those are on the list to be eliminated as far as extreme poverty. And I actually saw extreme poverty in Beijing when we were living up there from 2010 until 2016, when we went to Shenzhen for three years after that. These were like these makeshift towns that were just rise up in barren areas and out on the outskirts of Beijing. And I actually went and visited a few and took pictures and talked to some people but again, those have all been eliminated now. So there are no other countries besides communist socialist countries that have eliminated poverty. DPRK, North Korea, China, Vietnam. Russia's not exactly communist, but since Putin got elected, and they still have their huge socialist infrastructure from the days of the USSR, they were being plundered and raped by global capitalism until he came into power after Yeltsin gave the keys to all the global capitalists. So now Russia is eliminating poverty. Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, etc. In spite of all the propaganda you are fed, that I for sure know that, like in places like China and Cuba and DPRK, no one's going hungry. Now, they were going hungry after the USSR fell, and like in the DPRK in Cuba, they went through a few tough years when they no longer had their bilateral trade and cooperation with the USSR. But to the best of my knowledge, that is no longer true in any of the communist socialist countries. And Iran is socialist. It's socialist number one, and then Islamic number two. I understand Eritrea, they went through a terrible drought, but no one's going hungry there either. This is impossible in in capitalist countries. In capitalism must have starving people. Capitalism must have homeless people. Capitalism must have people who are dying young. And in fact, I wrote, and I put it. I'll put it in the on this page here on my where you'll find this video on China Rising Radio Sinoland. I actually wrote an article quite a while back in 2016 where I compared the United States, China, the Philippines, and France. I compared communist China, capitalist Philippines, and imperial France, and in that podcast and article that I wrote, I said that the every day, 7 days a week, 30.5 days a year, 365 days, 30.5 days a month, 365 days a year, they should gather up 10,000 children under the age of 5 and put them in Concord Plaza in Paris, Hyde Park in London, and on the Grand Mall, the mall in Washington, and sacrifice them every day, cut their throats, burn them alive, because that's exactly what global capitalism is doing every day. It's actually down to about 25,000 a day. It used to be 30,000, but again, that's largely thanks to China, Russia, and the other communist socialist countries. But even today, 25,000 children under the age of 5 die every day for a lack of clean water, shelter, food, disease, and there's one more I'm trying to think of. Their resources are transferred to London, Paris, and Washington, and Europe, basically your Anglo-land, the Western countries. For us to, in capitalism, for us to have our lifestyle, they have to be sacrificed every day. And in fact, two French presidents, I've got their quotes, even said, one on the left, Mitterrand, back in the 80s, and then Jacques Chirac in the 90s, said that France could not survive without West Africa. And they didn't talk about exploitation and rape and plunder and pillage and stealing the assets and financially enslaving the people with their CFA currency, and which is way overvalued to suppress imports, and they have to, to suppress exports, and they end up having to import everything from France. France couldn't survive without their colonies, which still exist. Britain couldn't survive without its colonies in East Africa, Asia. The United States couldn't survive without its colonies in Latin America, etc. So the fact that I find it incredibly impressive that the Chinese, and you should try to watch them. There's a lot of good. I love Chinese cinema. It's really, really good. It's gritty. It's real. I've included the links to the first 2 here with the English subtitles. I went and checked number 23, and the others don't have English subtitles yet. Let's just hope that they continue to add subtitles. But you can at least watch an hour and a half of a Chinese cinema and see, real life, what people went through to alleviate poverty in China. I actually have about 150 videos on my hard drive, and Chinese movies on my hard drive, most of them with English subtitles. So one of these days I'll get to watch more of them because I'm so busy with China Rising Radio Sinoland and China Tech News Flash. And another thing to think about is that the United States, used to make films about poverty elimination or poverty alleviation. When? During the during the Great Depression and the New Deal, the government had, went out and took films, filmed people working, building dams, just like these here in China. The Tennessee Valley Authority building, recovering agricultural land, interviewing people, radio, and then they did film, of course, for the big screen. When people used to go to the theaters to watch movies, they'd do like a little 10 or 15 minute propaganda to show people that the Americans were getting back on their feet and getting to work and turning the country around. This while you can go on TikTok, and the Chinese have all kinds of videos where they're visiting the United States or living there, and they're filming, and it's all done in Chinese, but they're filming, tent cities in the United States, people starving, people living in sleeping bags, in the middle of winter. And this is not uncommon now. I mean, there are probably hundreds of thousands of people, underpasses and bridges and forested areas where people are living in tents, living in their cars. The Chinese are filming all this, and they're talking about it. And in fact, I just saw one recently, and the telephone number over on the overpass was 312, which means it's Chicago. This is Chicago in the winter. What's curious is all the people they were filming were white. They weren't even. This wasn't like blacks and browns and yellows and reds. These were white people. So it's not just affecting minorities; it's affecting everybody. Digging for garbage and digging through garbage and finding food and begging on the streets and of course they're sitting there saying in Chinese, "This is the greatest country in the world." Look at China. China has eliminated extreme poverty, and America is increasing it by the day. And it is, of course, getting worse and worse. I actually thought I had saved one of those clips, and if I find it, I'll include it in this on this page that I'm going to create for this video, and then the 2 YouTube videos of the Chinese TV series. So, what I'm trying to get at is the big lie propaganda machine gets you to retch, and like gag whenever somebody mentions socialism or communism, and you may want to, after you finish gagging and after you finish retching from your Pavlovian brain, and I was brainwashed. I was brainwashed too, so it's not like I'm somebody special. And I didn't even get it till I went back to China the second time in 2010. I lived there from 1990 to 1997. So it takes a long time to rewire the brain to where we can think clearly and with an open mind. So you may just you may want to take a look at read about socialism, read about communism. It's hard to find anything that in the mainstream press that is not just fangs and claws and blood and everything else. But there are well, my website for starters, or I've got all kinds of articles about it. Anyway, I hope the Chinese television company continues to do English subtitles, but if not, enjoy the first 2 installments I've included here. And again, please make a donation. January has been abysmal. I mean, nobody is helping me out financially for all the work I'm doing, my Meng Wanzhou exposés and everything else. Nada. So please make a donation. A fundraiser, PayPal. What am I leaving out? Fundraiser, PayPal, or Patreon. and $1, $5, 20, 50, 100, whatever you can do to show your appreciation for everything I bring to you in terms of information, analysis, I would appreciate it. Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, signing out.